Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome back to Tea with Tea Talks with Mr. Amari Leach. Today's episode is a powerful celebration of loving yourself just as you are. I'm sitting down with someone who embodies confidence, transformation, and authenticity, Fairen Kia. Fairen Kia, fondly known as the champion of self-love, is a body-positive activist, model, and self-published author of the inspiring book, Dear Fat Girls, When Love Wasn't Enough. In this vulnerable and powerful work, she shares her journey of survival from an abusive relationship, offering hope and empowerment to others. Fern is on a mission to redefine the narrative surrounding the word fat, transforming it from a negative label into a celebration of body confidence and agency. As a self-love and body confidence coach with nearly 2 decades of experience, she guides people in embracing their bodies, owning their spaces, and radiating confidence. Through her work in fashion, film, art, and photography, Fern creates opportunities for fat, plus size, and large bodies individuals to be represented in a positive and empowering way. Her mantra is simple yet profound: all bodies are good bodies. Fern is also a wedding officiant, podcast personality, curator, and the founder of Love Thy Belly, LTB, a body positive organization and campaign. Since its creation in August 2019, LTB has championed the celebration of body anatomy and image, achieving a 100% success rate with its merchandise, services, and programs. From hosting masterclasses and workshops to hosting events, Fern's passion for belonging shines brightly, inspiring countless individuals to embrace their authentic selves. Together, we're going to talk about her remarkable journey, her mission to celebrate all bodies, and how we can learn to show up boldly and unapologetically in our own skin. So grab your favorite cup of tea and get comfortable, because this isn't just a conversation. It's a call to reclaim your power, rewrite the rules, and love yourself out loud. You won't want to miss a single moment. So welcome in, Fern.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so
That
glad.
bio was so good. It was almost like I wrote
I know, right? I said, hold on. The author it was, dang. It's so powerful, because I was like, when you your bio, I was like, geez, like, I was like, it don't need to be touched. That's y'all. Listen, I was gonna add a few things. I was like, it don't need to be touched. She did that.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank
Welcome
you
to
so much
Tea.
for having me. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
I am too. I'm a Louisville native, so shout out to Louisville 502. We in the building, y'all. We are
Yep.
in the
Well,
building.
and I'm originally from Frankfort, Kentucky, so it's still
Yeah,
502. Still
yeah,
502.
502. Right now I'm in Seattle right now, so
Mhm.
that I'm on the West Coast, but it's nothing like home. They don't know how to fry chicken good here, so
And what? Tell me about that sweet tea.
oh my God, they need work.
Right. And I know you miss I know you miss a good old bag of Grippos.
I do. My mama actually bought me some from Amazon. That's how much I miss. In Big Red, they have no Big Red here.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I tell you one thing they do good here: seafood. I love their
Mm.
seafood. I love their
Okay.
seafood. It's really
Okay.
good. But I miss my grippos. I miss going to the store getting my Big Red. You know what I'm saying? My
Uh-huh.
little bags. You know how you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's beautiful here. I love it. But home will always be home. So shout out to Louisville and Frank. And listen, okay,
Mm-hmm.
502 is in the building. So I
Yes.
want to get started on self-love and body image. My first question to you is, what inspired you to become your journey? What inspired you to begin your journey as a self-love and body confidence coach?
So, looking back, what I didn't realize is I had been doing this work since before high school. And I
Mm,
had no idea that what I was doing was body confidence coaching or self-love coaching. I thought I was just being myself, offering advice or encouragement, teaching people about affirmations. What I've learned through my work is that language is so important. Not
mm,
just the words that we use, but the way in which we use them. And
mm,
so, in learning that, I've been doing this work for like you mentioned about almost 2 decades now. A lot of that is because I have existed in this fat body since the second grade. Now, I didn't know that I was in a fat body. I didn't know that there was something othered about me until we had these all about me posters that we had outside of our second grade classroom. So you know what
I
I'm talking
remember
about?
that. I
Yeah,
remember.
they have all that information, your name, your age. But at that time they had your weight, your height, and like interests and hobbies and things like that. And I remember
Wow.
looking at the weight, and mine was significantly different than everyone else's. Mine was like, I believe it was 92 pounds, but somewhere between 92 to it said something about 90 pounds on there. And I remember distinctly remembering that I was the only one that had a 9 in mine. And so that was the moment that I somehow felt different than everyone else in the classroom. And in second grade, I don't recall people treating me differently. But once we got to middle school, there was definitely like a difference, and people who live in fat bodies, large bodies, plus size bodies, a lot of us had that very similar conversation or that very similar experience of that's when people start making comments about your body at school. Now,
Yes.
we're also Black, right? And
Uh,
so our Black relatives love to make comments about our bodies. You'll come, well, baby, are you sure you want an extra that? Or do you sure you
uh-huh.
need a piece of that?
You got bigger since last time,
Oh my God, you're a little bit bigger than you were last summer.
Yeah.
And it's these comments, these conversations, these things that I didn't know that this is the work that I was doing, but I have always been very anti-fat rhetoric. I've always been very anti-body shaming in all ways, in all facets. To the point to where at one point in my life, it felt that it was more important that I showed up as my most authentic self by reclaiming the word fat.
Mm. You want to know what sticks out to me is I can't believe they put that in second grade,
Yeah,
adding the weight to about you.
yeah. Well, it was
They,
everything, right? It was your eye color, your hair color, your
yeah,
weight, your height. So, right, these are
that,
identifiers, these are descriptors. And we're not having these kind of conversations about weight shaming and body shaming, in the early 90s. These aren't conversations that we're having at all.
no, 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 not at all. And because when I was in second grade, they didn't, they had the list, but weight wasn't on there,
Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of curious of why they added that. I can see why, like I get, but it's kind of like, why, these are kids, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Which is
why they,
probably why they took those things away. And like current
right,
About Me posters, they don't necessarily have these like
right,
physical identifiers. They mostly have things like your name, what you're
your
interested in,
name, yeah.
yeah, what you want to be when you grow up, kind of thing. So like those physical identifiers aren't necessarily on
And
the
I've
the
seen that,
information.
that, you know what I'm saying? Because we didn't have the weight, and I'm a big guy myself, so you know, where we come from, we were just larger people. Even like being here on the West Coast, they're like, when they see bigger people, they're like shocked. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But yeah, when I moved here, they're like, because everyone, it's not like back home where everyone is a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, all of that. So
Down
it's
south,
yeah, down south,
down
but
south in the Midwest.
yeah, 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 but it's just interesting to hear that, but to know at that early age and to see that difference at an early age. I'm also thinking about your mind and your mental and how that, you know what I'm saying, how that must have felt as little Fern, you know what I'm saying, to see that you were different from everybody else and it was plastered for everybody to see. Because for me, being younger, I was always the tallest. So I was the outcast. I felt weird when they did the height. They did do the height. They didn't do the weight. And I was always just the number one. Got called out in the class. Somebody was giggling in the line. They automatically assumed it was me.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So, wow, yeah. I'm glad that they do not have that anymore.
me too.
But I'm
And
glad.
a lot of that's because we have to think about the socialization that creates with a lot of kids.
Right, right.
And being fat is still something seen as like a very negative connotation, a very negative thing.
Yes. Yes.
Although a lot of my work is about using the word fat as word reclamation, but also as just a physical identifier. The same way I call myself fat is the same way I call myself Black, the same way I call myself woman, the same way I call myself queer.
Right.
Same way I might refer to like some of the fact that I'm a published author. So those things I'm using that word as an identifier, just like I would any other
Any
identifier
other
of
word?
myself.
Yes. And I remember the movie. You remember the movie Fat Girls with Monique?
Yes.
Yeah, so I used to like that because my mom's a bigger woman. So growing up, I'm her protector. So like growing up, like kids would point and say things, or and like I'm a bigger person, so like being so insecure in their body and fearing that word fat, not wanting to say it because it was so negative. Society made it negative, but I love the way you're saying, like, I use it as a term. It's equal opportunity over here, but
Yes.
redefining the term. It's
Yes.
no longer negative when we're talking about it. I'm smiling when we're talking about it,
Yes.
because in the stigma around like that word, that you know that people with eating and things like that. And I'm like, a lot of people are larger because of medical issues. That's not talked about enough. You know what I'm saying? So I love how you're just changing the narrative of that. I love
Yes.
that. You're doing it, Fern.
Well, thank you.
So
Thank
yes,
you.
so
Thank you.
you redefine the word fat in such a powerful way. Can you share how that journey began for you? And I think you kind of already touched on that. So I'm going to go to the next question, because I
That's
think
fine.
yeah, I think we covered that. You covered
Oh,
that
well, I
perfect.
guess I can add into it too, is that in 2015, I wrote a letter to myself. And in
Oh,
that letter, I apologized to myself.
wow.
And
I
I
love
say, thank you. And I say, how I apologize because I think that there was a time in my life where I spent years, not I think, there was a time in my life where I spent years not appreciating, not respecting,
it.
and not loving myself because I didn't love what I looked like in the mirror because I had been convinced that there was something wrong with me from a
Yep.
very young age, whether that be from and unintentionally from family members, unintentionally from friends, unintentionally from kids at school, and then very intentionally from society, right? Being the media and and things of that nature. And so I started to internalize these messages that weren't necessarily my real true thoughts and my real true feelings about myself. And
Right.
so I apologized to myself in this letter and I told myself that I was sorry for not loving me enough and for allowing myself to be convinced of what love was, that I put myself in a position to be harmed in a lot of ways.
Cool.
And it was really hard, right? Because not only are you taking accountability for things that happen to you, but you're taking accountability for the role that you also played in some of those things. And it doesn't mean that I was the reason for the harm, but what it does mean is that there was harm that was caused and that I have to still take the accountability and responsibility for my own experiences. And I have to do that for myself.
And, and you know what? That alone, I hope when someone hears this, that they take that practice, because that is such a powerful practice, to write a letter to yourself apologizing. And, because society, that's something we have no control over, how they treat us, how they look at us, and how that's played on us and how we feel about ourselves.
Mhm.
But the fact, you gave me chills just describing that. And I really hope someone listens to this and say, I'm going to try that. I need to do that, because that is a powerful way to start your healing journey. Like, that's beautiful.
Thank you, Mr.
That is
Amari.
beautiful. That is beautiful. So, what are some common or misconceptions about body positivity that you often have to confront?
Oftentimes people will say, because my brand and my purpose is love thy belly. And
Hmm.
so I chose belly because that's the core of who you are, right? Your belly holds the majority of your organs. Your belly is like it's the core, it's the middle of your body. And
Hmm.
so to love yourself from the core of who you are, from the space in which you are, the space in which holds a lot of who you are. Um, a lot of times people think that I'm quote unquote promoting obesity. And the term obesity is often thrown around a lot in a lot of different non contextual ways. There are medical terms. The medical term obesity has a medical definition that people can, you can research and talk to a medical professional about. However, when people are oftentimes throwing the word obesity around in a very laissez-faire way, it's usually around the context of someone who's just larger. And the word fat just means in excess. It means to have more of, right? Whereas, like, again, obesity has medical terminology too. Um, but what I feel like people are trying to say is that they don't like the fact that I am letting people of various sizes know that it is okay to love yourself. It is okay to love yourself from the core of who you are and to allow that love that you feel on the inside of you to emit out into the world. And what's sad is that my message of self-love and how self-love can be and how self-love can be this very powerful message, it's being misconstrued as saying that I want people to not take care of themselves. But Love Thy Belly we have total wellness pillars. We have the 5 pillars, we have the 5 heartbeats, and all of those things consist of building oneself from their mind, from their body, from their spirit, through community and education. And
Yes.
so if looking at a picture of a fat woman, namely me or someone else, or a fat person, if what that creates in you a very negative visceral reaction, well, baby, that's some type of self-healing you need to go through.
Oh, that's if Fairen said I'm gonna
Because
call it, I'm gonna let you know. The call's coming from
come
inside the you- but you want to know because and with people thinking, and it's like you promote everything about healing. And I mean self-love is like top tier self-care.
oof, come
Top
on.
tier what this society needs more of. And
Yes.
they want us to get away. That's why everything that's different, everything that promotes, like Love Thy Belly, promoting, self-love and healing from your core. They don't want people knowing that. They don't want people knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. That's the outside. But it gets inside your head and it becomes, you know what I'm saying? Because if you hear it over and over and over again, how you look, how you should do this, all of that, it becomes your inner soundtrack. Then you start to believe it. Then you start telling yourself that. And like you said, your core, trauma stored there. And I love how that's where you go, and that's your mission, the core. Because people don't realize that trauma stays within our bones,
Yes.
stays in our mind, stays in our organs. It
Mhm.
stays there. And then you wondering why you're sick, all of that. So promoting self-care and taking care of yourself and loving yourself and acknowledging like, hey, there is nothing wrong with you. That is very powerful. And that is what the world needs. So those people, yeah, they just it's projecting.
Yeah, there's a book, The Body Keeps the Score, by Dr. Bessel Vander Kolk, examining how trauma impacts the mind and the body, and how various therapies can help. And therapy can be movement therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy can be the very traditional therapy. um
Yoga,
and it just
meditation.
in creating space of healing looks different for everybody, and healing spaces look very different culturally as well. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, for Black folks, we love healing through movement, we love healing through food, through
Yeah.
community, things of that nature, right?
Oh, this
That's how
sounds
we
great.
are.
Yeah.
Queer folk, we love, baby, we love a good time. And what people struggle to understand is that joy is as much an act of resistance as anything else that we do. When you are a marginalized community, choosing, seeking,
Mm.
catapulting yourself through joy, through community, that's how we grow. That's how we expand. That's how we're able to be more holistic versions of ourselves.
Yep.
And so I think that for me, like, a common misconception, not only promoting obesity, but I think a lot of times people feel like the fun stuff that I do, the parties, the events, the workshops, the celebrations of lived experiences,
Mhm.
the art galleries, the fashion shows, that
Right.
those things are somehow sometimes somehow anti resistance, or somehow anti exploration of oneself through various mediums, right?
Mm.
We're not allowed to have these things, and to be
No.
honest, to to not allow joy and love and experiences in that way is very patriarchal and it's very white supremacist in a lot of
Very.
ways.
It's
And
rooted in
with
it.
the current state that we're living in America, we all need to be very anti-patriarchy and very
Very.
anti-white supremacy. And the problem is we're not allowing ourselves to be that because we've all been conditioned in capitalism.
Very. The root of everything is white supremacy, capitalism, and that is why we have no joy. And like you said, we know how to create our joy. We know how to have fun, celebrate us. A good old cookout. When you were mentioning, we know how to get together. Listen, the cookout heals me. Okay, get the aunties, the uncles, pull out the cards. We know how to have a good time because of what we face every day from the
And that's
system.
that us gathering is ancestral to us,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Because
It is.
again, from American history, if two enslaved people gathered,
That was
that was
too.
that was a crime, a
That was a crime.
crime. You
It was
were
too much.
murdered for that,
Mhm.
right? And so when
Yeah,
we are gathering, when we are celebrating, when we're experiencing joy in any ways that we are doing so,
our ancestors are in the room. They
hello,
right.
come on.
As it's hey, listen, I'm picking up what you're laying down. Like that's what they hate. That's why they try to defer us from that so much. So it's important to have organizations like Love Thy Belly and having someone like Fairen Kia and Amari that is creating these spaces. Like, no, you're gonna get that joy over here. You're gonna
Yes,
connect back with your ancestors because our ancestors were healing like that from the
come
earth
on.
and yoga, meditation, getting together, meeting in the woods, having a fire, dancing around it. They all taught us that was demonic, all of that, but that was our spirit. That was the opposite of that. That was our joy. But they had to make it that way so that we could align with them and their beliefs and defer us away from our roots.
Hmm.
And we all seen roots.
And people think that for some reason joy or fun or love and gathering and celebration are just some antithesis of like seriousness. And yes, they are because it's okay to enjoy life.
It
Being
is
serious about life all the
all the
time,
time.
it can be so overwhelming.
It
And
is
someone like
overly.
me, I struggle with anxiety and depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And so having spaces where I'm creating intentional healing and intentional joy through going out, let's say I grab a couple of people and I'm like, meet me at the park, we're about to take pictures. There
Yes.
was a time in my life where I refused to take photos. I have friends who were like, Farron, we don't have any pictures together. And I refused to take photos because I didn't feel like I did not like the photos. There was times in my life where I hid the mirror from myself. And once you strip those things back, you start to learn that you're doing that simply because you have been conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with you. You've been conditioned to believe that you are somehow wrong or bad because you look a particular way. And that's across the spectrum. What I
Mhm.
didn't realize is that through my fat work, that I would find that everyone struggles with body image. So I
Everyone.
guess that would be another thing that's probably something else that I come up against is that people thinking that my work is promoting
Or
obesity or it's anti revolutionary work in some way. And then I guess another thing would be that I'm not that what was I just talking about? I got lost my track of thought.
including all, because I was gonna say including all bodies, like all
Yes,
bodies.
thank you. That it's
Yeah,
exclusive, right? That
yeah.
it's that
It's just for
I'm
one.
only talking about fat bodies and I'm only talking about black bodies and I'm only talking about queer bodies. That's a common misconception. I center those experiences. I center those voices. In my spaces, marginalized communities are always going to be centered because
Always.
we're the ones who need the safe spaces.
And there is nothing wrong with us centering us because we have to do it. If we don't do it, no one else will. And
Yes.
look at the world, look at history. We're gonna do it, and we get so much shit for that. We do when we prioritize us, but we still include everyone because it's in our nature.
Yes.
We can't be our oppressors. You know what I'm saying? Like we center us, but the fact that you're still like everybody, because I know that everybody deals with this in some way. And the fact that like the whole mirror thing, we actually have a lot in common because I also suffer from anxiety PTSD, depression, and I didn't like taking pictures for a while because of my weight. And, I just hated, because society told me to hate what I seen. Society told me this, like, you're big, so you're not attractive, and I'm a darker skinned guy. You're not, nobody wants you. So these are things that I was like, okay, these are true about me. I didn't question it. So to not look at our beautiful selves in the mirror, like, we need reparations for that, society.
Give me my man time out.
you know, because it's like, that's how much, and people need to hear this. That's how much this society and this system has did a number on us, mentally, physically, emotionally. So the fact that we are taking our power back, and this is
Okay.
talking about right now, your work and what you're doing, I think you won that. Thank you. I think you got that, but I love that because I'm the same with my business. I center us, but
Mhm.
I still make sure that I acknowledge everyone. So I love that all bodies are good bodies,
And
and
that's
that
why I say that all bodies are good bodies, and own every space you enter. Because a lot of times we have these messages of, well, this is a good body or this is a good body. Baby,
right.
you got a body. So you have one. All
God,
bodies are inherently good. There's
mm,
nothing inherently wrong or bad about your body.
no,
And a lot of times people like to disguise their very anti fat rhetoric and their very fat phobic rhetoric under the guise of health. And if you listen to people, it has nothing to do with health. There are plenty of fat people who are
oh,
healthy, who have a
healthy,
clean bill of health. Just like
clean,
there are plenty of non-fat people, and in our work we call them straight size. There are plenty of straight size people who do not have a clean bill of health. Health is
right.
not dependent upon someone's
Mhm.
size.
Right.
It does have everything to do with that individual person and the conversations that they're having with their healthcare professionals. And
Mhm.
I actually go and talk to student doctors about how to create spaces that are safe for fat bodies and queer bodies, in just the language that they're using with the people of the communities that I represent or that I'm a part of.
I love
Because a
that.
lot of that is, if you're not a part of that community or you don't have anyone in your life who is a part of that community, you're using language and rhetoric that is based on Scandinavian white men, like the BMI, the body mass index. And so when we're using this language and these studies of one particular subgroup of people, well, yes, we are going to have a lot of misconceptions because
Yes.
we didn't do our due diligence as the researcher of getting more people involved in our research and in our studies.
Yeah. And I love that, going to talk to students. I love that, so that you're teaching them, so that when they walk in the room, they're bringing Fern's wisdom. They're bringing
Oh, thank you.
they're bringing that. And so people can, because a lot of people don't like going to the doctors because of how they're treated by doctors. And
Mhm.
that's a whole nother line of work,
Yeah.
and because they're seen as automatically unhealthy. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, all larger people, like, that doesn't mean that we're unhealthy. A lot of us are really healthy. You know what I mean? So I love that rewriting that narrative is, like, really important. So I love that you go and talk to student. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. So in what ways has your healing journey shaped the way you show up for others?
And what I had to do is I had to sit with me for a long time. I had to
Hmm.
sit with self. I had to reflect on self. Baby, I had to talk to self. And self had to get it together because you weren't in a space to lead. And I had to be honest with myself about that. I was not in a space to lead. And sometimes I wasn't in a space to show up as more than just physically being present. So what I had to do is I had to sit with self. I had to talk to me. I had to guide me through a lot of things. I had to teach me a lot of things. And then I had to go out and find more information and learn more and gather information. And I had to do so in a way that wasn't just that wasn't always comfortable. I had to be uncomfortable in a lot of spaces. I had to be in spaces I didn't want to be in, because what I've learned and what I'm hoping to impart on others is that there is comfortability in being uncomfortable.
Very, very. And you had to, first you got to be the student to be the teacher.
Come on.
And first you have to go within, because that accountability self-talk, Amari, me and this guy, like, hey, bro, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes mentally, emotionally, can't show up. I got to
Mhm.
show up for me. I have to walk that journey with me back home so that I can go out and help others. You can't help anyone until you help home
Mhm.
self. You know what I'm saying? And that is a real conversation that a lot of people, have to have with themselves. But when you do it and you see the people that you're helping, once you've helped yourself, there's nothing more powerful than that. But you have to people also really have, like I say again, have to learn how to be the student
Yeah.
before you can be the teacher. You have to learn how to follow before you can lead. And being uncomfortable, it's like fear. You need fear to have faith. You need fear to walk in rooms and go and talk in front of a crowd full of people, hosting shows, me doing panels. Like the first time I did that, I was scared. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I can't do this. I can't do this." But God was like, "I wouldn't have placed you here if you couldn't."
Yeah.
Fear can be in the car, but it just can't be the driver.
All
Your
right now.
Hey, your faith has to overpower your fear. And sometimes that looks like sitting down, talking to yourself, prepping yourself, sitting down saying, I need to be the student right now.
Yeah.
God touch me, put me in places where I can learn so that I can add to my wisdom of my lived experience to continue to walk this walk and help others along their journey. So I love that. I love that. This is amazing. You are amazing, friend. I just want to say
Thank
that.
you.
You are. So, how can someone begin to build confidence in a world that constantly tells them they're not enough?
With this world that we live in of social media, if you're someone who interacts with social media in any form, right? And that be like our social media apps, the news, anything like that. If you are interacting with social media in any form, it is curating and creating a safe space within your algorithm. So the first thing that I did when I begun my self-love journey, other than writing that letter to myself, I began only consuming art by fat people. And
Mm,
art meaning music, film, photography, content, anything that was created by a fat content creator, because what it did is it shifted my algorithm to showing me very positive stories and depictions and fat stories that were robust and full. I no longer just was watching the TV show of the sad fat girl because she doesn't have any friends and can't find love and things like that. Right.
right.
Like now I'm having these experiences of fat and large bodies in a multitude of ways. I'm seeing fat folk in bikinis. I'm seeing people getting on planes. I'm seeing
Yes.
skydiving, jumping out of airplanes. I'm seeing people dance in the middle of a crowded street.
Oh,
I'm
and
seeing all
with
of
the biggest smile.
in I'm seeing fat bodies in regular jobs too. And regular I mean is like just a very conventional job. So maybe they're a sanitation worker, maybe they work at a fast food place, maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're a lawyer. And I'm seeing these robust stories of these people, and I'm allowing myself to consume this content in a very intentional way of saying these are representations of me and people like me.
Yep.
And what I do with that is I teach other people how to make sure that they're ensuring that the anything that they're consuming is not only positive in a lot of ways, but that it's also full and it's robust, and you're not just getting information and you're not just getting content and you're not just receiving things from one type of individual or one subgroup of people.
Right. And that is so powerful. Like, because I had to, come to that point. Like, I just want to follow authors because I want to be inspired. I want to see someone that looks like me doing what I want to do, what I
Mhm.
think, what I know I can do. I
Mhm.
want to see people, you know, enjoying their lives. Like, I support a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of Tone. She makes candles, kind of like
Oh
yours.
yes, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
And I'm just like, I love it. Like
I
I
love their art. I love their work. It's
and
so inclusive of so many different people, whether that
I'm
be
kids,
through
folks, everybody,
yes,
everybody. And when I tell you, and when I first saw it, I was like, that looks like ferns. I was because I know you have candles as well.
yes.
The way y'all better get y'all one, 'cause let me tell you. I literally was just like, this is what I'm like, and even though she may get a lot of hateful comments, all of that, she's like, let's look at the positive comments. You got people in the comments like, oh my God, I'm seeing myself in a candle, I'm in
Yes,
a planter, and
yes,
that's why representation is so powerful. It's like it's just like it's worth more than gold.
yes. You
Representation.
cannot see yourself as something if you don't see yourself as
There
something.
it is. There it
Right? And
is.
we can talk about that from a lot of ways. You can talk about that from a position in government. You can talk about that from a job that someone might want. We talk a lot about how kids have to see it to believe it. That's
Yeah.
not just children though. That's the
No,
human experience in general. A lot of
it's a
times people don't recognize, understand, or even are able to empathize with something unless it hits them directly. And sometimes that means being able to just simply see someone who's
yes.
doing what you want to do or something that you even never thought you were capable of doing.
Exactly. Because like even like, because like I said, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'4", and I love big women. I love seeing, like I said, my mom's a larger woman, and so I'm always super protective and overly supportive, because I'm like, I want you guys to know someone loves you. Someone thinks you look great, and like you said, wear that bikini. It's summertime, and the more that I'm growing up and seeing like so many, they're like at the beach, they're like, yeah, y'all going, yeah, I'm wearing this, and they, they working it, they're
Mhm.
doing it. I'm just like, yes, like not current, dancing in a crowded place with the biggest smile on their face, like supporting and following that and seeing it change. And I was like, that wasn't true what we thought growing up.
Yep.
That we couldn't do this, that we couldn't be comfortable, and that you couldn't see not just women, but even bigger men. I follow a lot of bigger men that wear muscle shirts and all of that. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
I'm still, bro.
It's
Like,
like,
come
oh,
on,
I can do that.
I
Like
can
that's
do
not
that.
just for them. I can do
I
that too.
can do that
I
too.
have a I have a quote in my book and it said in Dear Fat Girls When Love Wasn't Enough, and it says directly, sis, if you want the two piece, wear the two piece.
Please do, and they are doing that. And even here in Seattle, when I go to the beach, I'm always hyping them up. I'm like, you go, girl.
Yes, because again, all bodies are good bodies, but also you only have one body. You can change it all you want to. The change, and I hope that anytime anybody changes their body, that they're changing it for their own
For
personal lived
themselves, yes.
experiences, whether that be health, whatever. As long as it is a personal choice that someone is making for them to live their most healthy and their best life. I'm proprietor for bodily autonomy in any way.
Mhm.
Um, but like you only have this one body. Doesn't
Yes.
matter how much you change it, it's still gonna only be that one body. So
Yep.
you have to love it from everything of what it is. And a part of loving your body and loving yourself is being so honest. But honesty can also be loving.
Yes. And your body, this one body's your home.
Mm-hmm.
It's yours, and God gave it to you. God made you in perfection of God's eyes. And you are beautiful just as you are, no matter what. And like you said, if you want to change, because over the years I have lost a lot of weight. I've kind of toned up, you know, was, younger, preteens, early 20s, like I was, larger, but like, I toned up, lost a little weight, but I'm like, I looked at an old picture of myself and I was like, I still love you. I loved you then. I just didn't know how. But, and of course it felt good to, tone up and, get a little weight off and, all of that. But I'm just like, I did it for me. But I changed the narrative because I'm like, even then, it wasn't you that didn't love you, Amari. It was society. It was other things telling you that you weren't worthy. But I'm just like, I love all versions of me. I love this body. And even still being a tone bigger guy now, like you can't tell me nothing. Like I love, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
love, and that's something that you have to teach yourself, and you have to, it's like a book, you got to read it over and over and over again
Mm-hmm.
until it becomes your soundtrack. So speaking of Dear Fat Girls, we're going to talk about that. So Dear Fat Girls is such a powerful title. I love that. What did writing that book teach you about yourself?
I love that question.
Mm.
Dear Fat Girls came about in 2019. And it was really my own therapy journey, or therapeutic, I'll say that. It was a therapeutic journey for me because I was in a very unhealthy and abusive relationship where my partner that I was with at the time told me that she didn't love me because I was fat. And the what hurt the most about that is because in the duration of our relationship, I told her that one of my biggest fears is that I'm a burden on people that I love, or people are unable to love me because of my size. And it was like that. It was like my biggest fear was thrown in my face.
Mm.
And so it was really hard for me to kind of like work through that. And what I did is I would take post-it notes and I would write little messages to myself, affirmations on these
Yeah.
post-it notes. And I would put them all around the house we lived in. And I would like, and I would, it was for me to be able to read, um, you know, it was a counteraction to the words that were being said to me. If I was being told that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't pretty enough, or I shouldn't wear those outfits because they show too much of my body, or um I get a little emotional sometimes. So if I stumble over my words a little bit, I'm just catching
Listen,
myself.
listen, space, take your time. I'm
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
with
you.
you. Listen, we walking this walk together. You just take your time.
So it was not only in word reclamation, but in opposition to what I was being told. So I'd struggled with my weight the majority of my life, and there were a lot of things that I didn't realize were attached to my weight, and some of that was my feelings of insignificance or my feelings of self-worth. So what I did with those post-its is I just took them and I would read them to myself, and I would use those as a sounding board for me instead of the other words that I was being told. And so every time I would have one negative thought, or if I would hear a negative, if I would hear negative words, I would convince myself to say three positive things to myself out loud, or write three positive affirmations down out loud, and then post them around the house so I would be able to read them and say them to me. And I'd mentioned earlier about like having a mirror that I would have covered up. Well, this time on my post-its is I did the post-its on the perimeter of the mirror. And so I would stand in the mirror with my full self and my whole body, and I would actually say these affirmations to me out loud and looking at myself in the mirror. And when I would start to feel uncomfortable about looking at my reflection, I would have to be very gentle with myself and remind myself that there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with what I look like. There's nothing wrong with who I am. There's nothing wrong with my body. And I had to be very specific about that. So when I started doing what's called mirror work, is I would say three positive things about my body physically. So I might say something like, I love my arms because they carry everything that I hold. I love my legs because they allow me to travel through the world. I love my belly because it stores the majority of my organs, and also it's the core of who I am. So it's the core of where my self-love comes from. And I was very clear and specific in the language that I would use with myself. And so when writing Dear Fat Girls, what that was is it became this large letter to me that I was generalizing. So a lot of everything in the book is something that I said to myself. But I felt like I was not the only one who needed this. I was not the only one who needed to feel better about myself. And in 2018 actually is when I started the hashtag Love Thy Belly. And I was just using that to hashtag my own personal photos. And other people started using it for themselves. Or they would message me or text me or even comment on some of my pictures about their own stories that they were exploring with their body. And so in August of 2019, I've been writing the book from 2018 to 2019. So in August of 2019, when I published Dear Fat Girls, I didn't know it was going to be this kind of like call to action that it ended up being. But it was. People were sharing their stories publicly, or still with me, and then giving me permission to share a portion of their story, or share their story without sharing their name. And it became this sense of community that I didn't know it would be. But it makes sense because there's so many of us who struggle with body image in so many ways. And I didn't know that Dear Fat Girls would be something that a lot of people who had just had a baby would really lean into, because it ends up being this story of loving your body and all the changes that your body makes. And if you know someone who's been a birthing body, or you yourself have been a birthing body before, you know that your body changes in a lot of different ways, right? Like you're bringing forth human life, and so you are literally creating life inside of yourself. So you are going to change from your physicality to who you are mentally to who you are emotionally. There's a lot of changes involved. And what Dear Fat Girls ended up being is, it ended up being this call to home almost for people, of that you deserve love, and you deserve to love your body, not only because it has changed, but because it will change.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I say in here is, dear fat girl, you are valid. And I've had people who don't identify as a girl, who don't identify as a woman, say that they've been able to take this book, read it to themselves and for themselves, and they just don't really think about the word girl. And so they read it as dear myself. So I mean, like anything, dear whatever their name is, forgive yourself for the survival tactics that you have adopted. Right? Like these things are things that aren't specific to a particular body or a particular person. These are real things that anyone can experience at any point in time in their life. You know, maybe you're going through a heartbreak, which ended up being what mine was. I was going through a heartbreak, and not just the loss of a relationship, but the loss of who I once was.
Right.
I had to grieve me. And so this is a part of like my grieving process too. You know, I have another line is, your body is your temple. So maybe you're someone who has experienced some form of sexual abuse or some form of physical trauma in some kind of way, right? You're having to relearn how to take your body back for yourself. The things in the book end up being more than just notes on a post-it. They end up becoming a badge of honor for people to survive, to adapt, to thrive.
And your testimony turned into a roadmap of healing for so many others. It's so crazy how simply healing yourself, simply self, simply reaching back and doing all the healing work, all of that, how that can ripple out and help others.
Yeah.
That is a prime.
I was very public with it too, I think is what helped too. And it wasn't really like a choice to be public with my journey. I was in a way called to do so. There was something in me that moved to say, share this.
Share this. Yep. That was aligning with your purpose of why God put you here. Because somebody was on the brink until they read Dear Fat Girls, until they seen those affirmations that simply came from you. So that situation you needed, even though it was hurtful, you needed to fuel you. You needed, it was, your purpose was hidden in that. Because I was with, someone, and, like I said, we were both, larger, and I had to learn, I projected a lot. you know, I hated myself and my body, so I projected that on her as well.
Mhm.
So when I hear you talk about that, I didn't, say harmful things, but because of society and things like that, I'm like, oh, you sure you want to work out like that? Or am I sure I want to wear this? And we're already two big people, like, and I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? And, even growing up, like liking, bigger women, I was made fun of, I was teased. So I would project that I would, play like, oh, no, you know what I'm saying? Like I had to, and it's even tough to talk about because a part of me feels ashamed, but it's also accountability. And it's also the fact that I can say this, I can talk about it because someone needs to hear this. You know, I didn't love, like I said, I didn't love myself. I didn't love my body. So how was I going to love hers? How was I going to uplift her? And I didn't even know how to uplift myself. And then I'm like, it wasn't cool, in middle school, high school to, where the schools I went to, you got made fun of if you were with a big girl. You got talked about. And, what kid wants that? You know what I'm saying? And even though we can look back on it like, I at that age, I wish that I would have been like, no, this is who I like. I'm proudly with her. But as a child, I'm just like, I'm already getting bullied for being black, for being tall, acne, for being big myself. So I don't want to add to that. And through that, I realized the projection and the hurt that I spewed out, especially in my last relationship, where I wish I would have affirmed her more. Where I wished I would have, because I loved her body. I wished I would have, put it on a pedestal more and just
Yeah.
really pour into her. And of course, now that experience helped me get out of that, help heal that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And even though, talking about it, I feel like, man, I wish I could change it. It needed to happen so
Mhm.
that I could grow wiser and say, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna love you out loud. And I'm not saying that I never did, because I did. I just didn't do it in the best way, or the
Yeah.
healthiest way.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about that, I see her in you. I'm able to, I think this is healing, because it's like I'm talking to a version of her that was like, this is how I felt,
Yeah.
and so, that, love who you love out loud.
Mhm.
And now,
Even if that includes yourself.
even yes, and
Or
and like
actually let that include yourself.
that include yourself. And
Mhm.
like I said, I love, bigger women. So like, all the women that I, talk to and interact with, they're bigger women. And I see the difference of like loving them out loud, going to the beach. And and she's in a two-piece, and I'm like, we're chilling, we're having fun, and not feeling ashamed being with her or being with self. Cause I'm in trunks. I got my, so it's like it's affirming to say, you know what? I find I'm here. I have arrived. I'm going to love you out loud, and I'm going to love me out loud. I don't care what nobody says. I'm not going to repeat those patterns again, because I just realized how that affected someone that I loved, and how it affected me, and how I let society and the world make me think, or tell me how to treat her or myself because of how we looked. And I didn't have to be ashamed. So I think that was very healing for both of us right now.
Yeah.
Because, because I love to say it out loud, because, just she's a beautiful woman, you know what I'm saying? And there's just things in your life that you do where you're just like, I wish that I knew then what I know now,
Mhm.
but I know it now, and now I can make sure that that doesn't happen
Well,
again.
black people always say, when you know better, you do better.
Period.
To kind of like encapsulate everything, what Dear Fat Girls became, it was turning my pain into purpose.
Yes.
And love thy belly as a hashtag, as a call to action, as a mantra. It became a saving grace for me. And I tell people all the time that love thy belly really saved me for me. You
Mhm.
know, love thy belly would not be here without me, of course not, but I would not be here without love thy belly.
Yeah.
And so I needed that. Fairen Kia needed permission to know that it was okay to love me from who I am, at the core of who I am. And in doing so, and in creating that space of self-love, what it did is it allowed me to love other people and to show other people that I can love me and go on this journey of loving me while also teaching you how to love yourself, which is where
Yes.
my next book, Lovely Letters, an interactive notebook, comes into play.
Yeah. Listen, she's the author.
What Maya Wilkes say, she's an authoress.
Yes, like I think everyone like needs that book. Love it. It needs to be in every home. Let's
Come
like
on.
like
Everybody, get your copy of Dear Fat Girls, get your copy of Lovely Letters.
yes,
You get a book. You get a book.
yes, and yes. And I will have that in all the descriptions when after this posted.
Thank you.
Get your book. I'ma get the link, get your book, because that's what we need more of. Just a book of affirmations and affirming and representation, and teaching people self-love, because if they have a tool that they can use to help guide them,
Mm-hmm.
they can only be led the right way.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So Love Thy Belly has made a huge impact. How did the idea for this campaign start?
I mentioned that earlier. It was a hashtag. That's it. I
That's
was
it.
hashtagging my pictures and people fed into it. And then so what I didn't know though is that I would turn it into a business and into a
Yeah.
brand. I just I just thought I was just gonna be real cute with my little hashtags. And
Yeah, I remember that actually when it was a hashtag. Like I remember that, and love Thy Belly. I love that title. Like it's just it grabs you. It's just like you want to know more. Like tell me more. I want to
but
know.
also like it makes people uncomfortable, right? Because for a lot of people, what I didn't realize is that for a lot of people, not even just big people, not even just people who've been birthing bodies before, for a lot of people, the belly is a very touchy subject.
Yes, it
And
is.
so, I could have done something like love yourself and love who you are and, love your body or something like that, right? But it felt like it needed to be very like it needed to be something that spoke to me.
Yeah.
And the loving my thy it's an old English word for your. And
Mhm.
so I have an affinity for old English language, Shakespeare. Um and I
I
love
love it.
I love English. I was an English teacher too, so
Yes,
um
yeah. I came
so
from the team.
like
Yeah.
it really means to love yourself at the core of who you are.
You
And
are.
so love that belly is just like it was almost like an act of like resistance against, because I started it when I was actually in that abusive relationship. So it was like I'm like really rebellious, and I've always been rebellious. Like I was born early. Like I've been rebellious. I came out the womb ready.
I,
Ready for battle and ready for war.
I came out later. I was rebellious too. Like my mom was the last one to have her baby on the floor. I
Uh,
came. I was ready. Been
when you were
rebellious.
ready on your time.
I'm gonna do what I want to do.
It was just like my first, like, you know what, to this person, you think that you can say that I'm all these things. Well, I've decided that I'm not that. And
Mhm.
so I did a whole photo shoot for myself with a really great friend of mine and a personal stylist who's also an amazing friend of mine. And I brought the person that I was in a relationship at the time, I brought them on the photo shoot with me, and I had them carrying my bags and stuff.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Like, oh, you thought you had a what you thought? Oh, what you that, that, that
Because
that's ultimate.
I mean, like, I was adamant on I am going to love myself, because if I don't, I might not be here.
But it's not anyone else's job. That's what I've learned.
Hmm.
Nobody's gonna love you like you love you. And like you
Come on
said,
now.
I'm not gonna be here if I don't love me.
Yes.
I used to put that on to me on people. And then I realized that's not people's job.
No.
It's yours.
Yeah.
The only person who's gonna love you 1,000% is you.
Gotta be you. It's got to
Got
be
to be
you.
you. It's got to be you. Because if you neglect it, it's gonna show up in your relationships, who you choose, what you settle for, what you eat, it shows up in every aspect of your life. And I
Mhm.
want to say you chose right with Belly. Because even with having this conversation, as you talk, people understand like your belly, you know what I'm saying? Like when you talk, it flows with you, you know what I'm saying? So it's like healing the gut when you're having positive conversations and when you feel affirmed and when you feel seen. So you did right by Love Thy Belly.
Thank
You
you.
chose correctly.
Thank
But I'm loving the fact that you made them carry your bag. That's like well, I don't that was false player. So
It's giving checkmate.
boop, boop. So I love that. So what are some memorable stories or transformations you witnessed through your workshops and your coaching?
Oh, I love this question. So I think the most memorable thing that I've experienced well, first I'll do workshops. So the most memorable thing I've experienced in the workshops is I had a college sophomore say to me, "You tell us to take back our power. What does that look like for us to do that?" And for them to be a college sophomore, to have taken that message and really wanted me to expand upon that, it was beautiful. Because that's a question that a lot of adults may not have thought to ask, and not to say that they're not young adults, because they are, but that's a profound question for them to have even thought about, to then ask it out loud, right? It's one thing for you to think it, but it's another thing for you to ask that out loud. And so being able to take them kind of through those steps and what that can look like for them. And again, a lot of the coaching is about what this looks like for you, for your own individual journey. in a lot of the workshop, that's what that looks like, is how does this apply to your individual journey?
Yeah.
And then so from one of the coaching sessions, one of the best things I heard was, because of you, I now feel comfortable wearing a dress that doesn't have long sleeves.
Oh, that's powerful.
And to some people, that is not a big deal. And that's okay that that's not a big deal to some people. But
Mhm.
to me, that is so powerful. And that someone had convinced themselves that there was something so wrong with them or with their body, or their body just wasn't worthy enough to be shown, that they wouldn't wear a dress without sleeves. Oh, I just thought about another one. Another one. I had a woman who was in what she identified as a loveless marriage. And she
Mm.
said that after following Love Thy Belly and reading the messages and watching the films, watching the videos, and coming to the events, that she finally felt safe enough to leave that marriage.
All right.
Right? Because you convince yourself that maybe you can't find better.
Oh,
Or maybe
yeah.
that person has convinced you that you won't
You
find
can't
better.
find better. I know one to love you like they will. I know one else will
There
love
are
you.
7 billion people
But
on this planet.
honestly, if you are making someone feel like that, then you don't love them,
Yes.
because love is not having to put sticky notes everywhere to remind yourself. Love is your partner waking up every day being blessed and honored to be
Yes.
able to
Be in
be
your
in your
presence.
presence and say, "Woo, girl, you are beautiful." Like affirming everything about you, and along with you doing it yourself, because don't wait on nobody to affirm you. You do it yourself. But love is an action, and you will
Yes.
see it, you will feel it. And love is like, man, I'm the luckiest person in the world because I get to hold you. I love your arms. I love your legs
Yes.
because you get to walk to me. You use your arms to hold me. That is love. So if anyone out there, listeners, is telling you the opposite or making you feel the opposite, there is somebody out there that will love you.
Absolutely. Loving yourself first, and loving yourself in all your own personal seasons. Right?
Yes.
Because it's real easy to love yourself when things are going great for you. And it's real easy for other people to love you when things are going great for you. But to be able to love yourself through all of your seasons,
Oh,
that means a lot to you, and it matters a lot to you.
it
So those
does.
would be probably the greatest kind of like stories that I have from my workshops and from my events and my individual coaching sessions.
I love that. And the fact that that person left their marriage off the basis of you choosing you, just simply choosing you. Like, we often overlook how saving ourselves again is helping someone else's journey and helping someone else's story, how they need us. That is just so
Powerful.
powerful. So I want to get into cultural and community perspectives. What would you say to parents trying to raise body confident children?
Don't say anything that you wouldn't want said to you.
When I started Tea with Tea, I started it because I started my healing journey, my inner child healing journey. And I said, what did little Amari need that he didn't get? And when I'm a parent coach, so I'm teaching parents how to be a safe space for their children, how to listen to them, how to affirm them. And that is what I tell them all the time. For one, how did it feel when you were younger and it was done to you? When your parents neglected you, or you went to your grandmother's house and she told you how big you were, how she put you down, and all of that. Not even just your grandmother, but it's just common. But your grandparents, your uncles, aunt, whoever. You know what I'm saying? How did it feel when it was done to you? Do you want to pass that down to your children? You are the soundtrack. You are the first teacher, and you are the soundtrack in your child's mind. Whatever you put in it at an early age, you're their first teacher. You're their first everything. Whatever you do will stick with them forever.
Yeah.
Watch what you say.
Watch it.
Watch what you
Be very intentional on the conversations that you're having to them, and also that you're having about them.
in around them.
Because we don't, that's what I'm saying, about them. Whether or
Yeah.
not you're having it to them, but if you were having something, saying something about them, those conversations still matter because you're holding on to that thing. And so what you'll do with that energy is you'll project that energy. And maybe it might be something like, my kid is so this and so that. And you might not always be able to shake that vibe off before you
No.
get around them. I'm not saying parenting is easy. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that as a parent, it is a full responsibility at all times. It just is. And I know that that's hard. I know that that's tough. I know that it's like, dang, if I say one wrong thing, I might fuck my kid up for the rest of their lives. Yes. And
Yes.
it's not fair. It's
It-
not. It's
and
not fair at
people-
all. It's
and
just the truth.
it is. And people have to understand the power of words. Words are powerful. Words are spells. You know what I'm saying? So it is true. Like, yeah, you can say one wrong thing and I do give, there's grace with parents,
Absolutely.
because but I also hold them accountable. Like, you're the adult. You should have more emotional, intelligence. You should know, how to hold your tongue a little bit better than
And you
some.
might not. Let's be honest. You might not know. But
Yeah,
you
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 might
do
not.
have to know. Right?
But
I'm not saying that you do in this moment. What I'm saying is that you have to prepare yourself for those things. And that might take time. I
it
think
does.
for me, the best thing that you can do in dealing with kids, one, not saying something you don't want said to you, but then also apologizing. Say I'm sorry. Take
Oh my
accountability.
God.
I can't tell you how many times I will tell my students, hey, this was a rough day for me, or I'm not
Yep.
having a great time. Whatever it might be, I'm very open and I'm very vulnerable about where I am emotionally. And then also saying, hey, I said something to you earlier and
Yep.
it seemed like it upset you. And that's not what I meant to do. And I'm very sorry that what I said upset you because I have to take accountability for how I said it, what I said, and, be honest about that. Or
And you,
if, hey, I said something and it made you uncomfortable and it made you upset, let's talk about that. Why are you upset with it? Why are you uncomfortable with that? What is it that I said that it caused that? And then how can we work backwards from that? Always taking accountability, always apologizing and being honest. Like, especially if
yes.
you yell at a kid,
Yeah.
that's a misregulation of yourself and it can happen.
It,
We all can get dysregulated very easily, just the way a kid gets dysregulated, adults get dysregulated. The difference is as an adult, you have to say, hey, this is what I did, this is where it was wrong, this is how I should have reacted and responded, because
yep.
you're modeling for them what to do.
You are yeah, and that's what I actually just did a segment on my podcast about how kids are owed an apology, because a lot of people are like, oh, they're kids. They're not owed apologies. They're, coming from that era of kids are seen, not heard, and
Yeah.
they're not respected as human. But it's like, how will they know what respect is if they're not given it?
I'm a
But
tiny human being.
right,
I
and why do
I
you
haven't been here very long.
and how do you feel like a child is not owed an apology when you wrong them, but then you want them to respect you? You have to teach them what it looks like. And apologizing to children is so therapeutic, it's healing, it teaches them, and it just provides them space to say, for them to recognize when they need to apologize. And they know that, okay, this adult respects me. So I'm telling you, apologize to a child, you're gonna get respected. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying?
And
So
again, it could be something as simple as you just said something wrong,
yep,
right?
just
And
apologize.
like, and maybe like when you watch how they react and respond to something, because it may not have been just like when an adult, if you said something that somebody didn't like and they were like, I ain't like that, you'd be like, oh, my bad.
Yeah,
It
my
can be
bad.
as simple as that. I
Yeah.
mean, you might have to use a little more language because they're kids and they're still learning and they're still developing. And again, back to what I said in the beginning, language is very important. Word choice as well as the placement of the words. Those things are very important. So making sure that you're creating as the safe adult in a kid's life, making sure you are creating that safe space for them, because the more they sometimes people get annoyed when kids are just like randomly telling them a bunch of stuff. But if a kid talks to you all the time and just says a bunch of stuff to you and maybe it's crazy stuff, they trust you.
They
That's
do.
what that
That
is.
they feel safe around you. So
Mhm.
please do everything you can to create that, because a lot of kids don't have that at home.
Yeah, as we've noticed. I mean, it's getting rough. It's getting
Yeah.
rough out here.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I love that. So yes, apologize to your children. They deserve it too. Like I said, I just did a podcast on it, and I did a whole thing because I seen a video of a man where he disrespected his son and he didn't apologize to him. He's like, I'm not apologizing to him. I'm like, you're letting your ego get in the way, and that's going to cost you. So parents, apologize to your children. Thank you. So how can we build more inclusive spaces in fashion, media, and wellness?
You can book a consultation with Fairen Kia of Love Thy Belly.
I feel it.
That's
You,
first things first. Book a consultation, okay? You go ahead and hit my books up.
uh-huh.
And then also being intentional about the spaces that you're trying to create. Who is that space for? Who is the audience? What is it that what is who's the audience? What is the goal?
That is, and it is that simple.
Mm-hmm.
It is that simple. So thank you for that, Fern. So before we move into the next few questions, I want to pause and I want to honor you. Your willingness to share such a vulnerable part of your story is a powerful act of courage. The strength it takes to not only survive something so painful, but to turn that experience into purpose, healing, and empowerment for others, that's nothing short of remarkable. You are a testament of how a heart can break, mend, and still be open wide enough to hold space for others. Like a rose growing through concrete, your story blooms with truth and tenderness, and your light reminds us all that even in the darkest seasons, healing is possible. So before I ask these questions, I want to have a disclaimer for our listeners. This episode does contain discussions about abusive relationships, which may be triggering for some listeners. Please take care of yourself as you listen. If you are someone you know is experiencing abuse, help is available. You are not alone. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE 7233 or text START to 88788. Support is free, confidential, and available 24/7. This episode is meant to offer truth, resilience, and hope, and to remind you that your healing matters, your story matters, and you matter. So, Fern, I want to ask you, for those currently in or trying to leave an abusive relationship, what words of strength or practical steps would you offer to help them begin their journey toward safety and self-love?
Secure your finances. If there's a way that you can secure yourself financially while still experiencing life with this person or with these people, creating a space of security for a financial security for yourself to help yourself get away. So that's first. And then figure out who your safe people are outside of people who are in relation with that person or those people, because oftentimes, whether that be a relationship, marriage, any type of connection that you're having with an abusive person or persons, you might have some connected people as well. So what you are going to need to do is you're going to need to find people who are safe for you and just you, because I won't say that people intentionally cause additional harm to someone, but they might unknowingly do so. And so securing yourself away from these people financially, or that person financially, and securing your safety away from that person. So if that means that you have a space that you can go to for safety, for physical safety, if you have a space that you can go to for emotional safety, if you have a space that you can go to for spiritual safety. These have to be people, places, and things that are not at all connected to the person or people who you're experiencing danger or harm from. Again, and it's not because people do things intentionally. Sometimes people do things very unintentionally and without malice. And there can be further unintended harm that is caused. And some people are intentional, right? Some people are saying, like, to the people or the person, or the people who are harming you, like, such and such is trying to leave you, they're trying to get away, they're saying all these things about you, and that can also be happening. So definitely doing creating space to secure yourself away from the people or persons financially, and then ways that you can secure yourself away from them physically and spiritually and emotionally. And so Mari had mentioned some of the services that may be available to people. There's also a suicide hotline that is very easy to get in contact with. There are also churches if you're someone who's experiencing harm. In Louisville, Kentucky, we have the Women's Center, and it's not just for women. It's for anyone who is experiencing a form of harm that they need to get away from. And then in Louisville, we also have some spaces for people who might be survivors of human trafficking or sex trafficking as well. And so finding spaces that are separate from the people or the persons causing you harm will be kind of that first measure and first step. Because for a lot of reasons, people stay. It's because of safety, it's because of security, and because of the financial inability to leave.
Thank you for that, Fern. So, looking back on your journey, what was one moment of clarity or courage that reminded you that you deserve better, and how can others start recognizing their worth even in the darkest moments?
Whew. Um, what was really hard for me is that um, this person was someone who I thought was a friend, and so I had put a lot of trust into them. And I was in school at the time. I was getting my master's, and I had 3 jobs. And so whenever I I was like school was starting to end, and I was about to graduate, and so a couple of my jobs were about to fall off, and I was able to. It was almost like I had been in this fog for so long because I was so focused on everything that I was doing. And when everything started to kind of fall off, my relationship was the only thing I had to focus on. And I remember we had this conversation and she said to me, "Well, I only want to be with you for safety and security." But prior to that, she had told me that she didn't love me and could not love me because I was fat. And so I kind of like sat with those things for a while. And I remember thinking to myself, it's not okay that you won't love parts of me. And it's not okay that you only want to be with me because of what you can use me for. And so, like I said, when everything else kind of faded away, I was able to kind of just only focus on those things. And I remember there was like and it's happening to me right now. Like my heart started doing this thing where it was almost like it was beating faster and faster and faster. And, through therapy, I realized that was anxiety. But it was that anxious feeling that I felt of saying that this does not feel safe. You choosing to use me for your safety and your security is now, well, not now, but at this point, I had been in an unsafe environment. And now I'm able to focus on that unsafe environment. And now I'm able to have the language for what these things were. So shortly after, and the universe works in very mysterious ways. I was actually approaching the breakup and I didn't know that. And I was at the nail salon, getting my nails done, ran into this woman who happened to be a therapist. So we were having a conversation about therapy and she let me know, she gave me her information. She was like, let's just go ahead and let's just schedule you a consultation for the following week. And lo and behold, I needed that consultation.
The universe
I
will give you
needed it.
what you
So
need.
I mean, very, very luckily for me, blessed happenstance, spirit, universe, everything working in the ways that it needs to work in that I was able to pretty much immediately start a therapy journey very shortly after my very like tumultuous breakup. Like it ended up being, it was bad. We lived together, we had finances, and it ended up being very bad. And so I was just lucky that I was in the right place at the right time. But, part of that looks like too, and like I had mentioned earlier, just like creating those financial spaces of safety and those physical spaces of safety. And that's what I was able to do in therapy is I was able to have that emotional and mental safety of letting my therapist know like this is everything that I'm going through and just kind of like laying it all out there on the plate.
Yeah. And you was able to get it out. And the
Yeah.
universe knew what you needed. That was not an accident. That was on purpose for
Yeah.
your purpose.
I mean, it was
On purpose
it,
for
it,
your
I mean, it was incredible, right? The way in which it happened, and my partner at the time and I were actually together for kind of a while after that, and they kind of had like a breach of like my own safety in which they found out who my therapist was and they contacted my therapist.
oh man.
Yeah, and so my therapist was able to kind of like redirect that in a way too, right? Because they're a professional. but it was just like, it was like that continued harm of that, like the narcissistic personality traits. I can't say they're narcissists, but those narcissistic personality traits, the continued gaslighting, the manipulation, the lying, like all of that kind of compounded on itself. So thank you. I will say thank you for this, for like this space to be able to say it, to get it out there, and to, remind people that you're not the only person, like, or to remind me that I'm not the only person who has or have or will experience something like this, but that there are ways to create safety for yourself outside of everything that you may have put into a relationship or into a situation or a job or whatever it might be. There's safety out there for you.
Thank you so much, Fairen. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. And I'm very proud of you. And, I'm glad the universe stepped in. I'm glad that you.
Honey, kick the door in.
Yeah. Because sometimes we don't listen. Sometimes, like me, I've had my times where the signs will always be clear. Your body will always tell you. Anxiety, like with your heart pump, all of that. It's pay attention to how you feel around that person.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to what they show you and pay attention to what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Because when someone tells you how they feel, Maya Angelou taught us this. You know what I'm saying? Believe them, And sometimes that is hard, especially when you love a person, especially when you built your life with them. I went through the same thing, sharing finances, living together. That's not easy. Mm-hmm. But when God steps in, when God steps in, and when you can see the light, follow it.
Okay.
And listen to your intuition and know that you deserve better, give yourself better, and you will be okay and you will make it out. And Fairen, you are a example of that. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So self-love and healing. Let's get into it. Let's talk about that and talk about, our practices and, what helps us, recharge. So what's your go-to self-care ritual when you need to recharge?
Twerking. Twerking. Because with that, like we talked about earlier, you hold a lot of stuff in your gut, but you hold a lot of stuff in your root of who you are. So if you do healing work in the way some of us do, it'll be in your sacral chakra, right? Yes. You hold a lot right there. And so releasing that means that you are physically moving your body. So you're gyrating your body, you're moving your body back and forth, you're moving your core, you're moving your hips, mm-hmm. right? Like creating that, you're releasing what's trapped in there, and you're allowing that to go back out, and you're releasing that out. So twerking is always going to be like, the Soulja Boy say, hop up out the bed.
Hop up bed, turn myself.
I hop up out the bed and immediately I'm just like, bow. Like, got to get my body. I got to get my body ready for what's, when you're asleep, that's your body's way of resting, and like, your organs' way of resting. So it's like, we got to wake up, we got to get ready for the day. Yeah. So that's that's my first thing that I do. And then the second thing that I do is I am aware of the first words that come out of my mouth. And the first words might be, Alexa, play, and I'll say whatever song I'm in the mood for that morning. It might be some affirmation music. It might be some throwing that ass music. Like, no, not now. So never mind. So
Alexa said, "Don't get me started. Don't call me in the room. Alexa, stay ready."
She said, "Who, me?"
She said, "Hold on. I got this."
Are we? Is it? So definitely that, and writing. I am a writer and I'm an author, but writing definitely. And writing might be, I might pick up a piece of paper that's just like in my purse, and maybe I'm out to dinner, out to lunch with myself or whatever, and I'm just like, just going ham, just writing whatever, and I'm letting it all out. Sometimes it might be just like typing on my computer. Sometimes it might be typing into my phone, in my notes section. Baby, that notes section, that's why I can't give nobody my password.
No.
But what goes on in there is between me and people.
Yeah. And so loyal. Thank you so much. Let's just give a shout out to the notes section. But writing is, I write, and the first thing when I get up is my chakra affirmations. It's the
Mhm.
first thing I see. And I'll play jazz or affirmations. And, I'm actually going to start my own affirmation series, for inner child healing. And,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, you know what I mean? Just with tying it with my work, with T, because we have a lot of similarities. Like, we both started something so powerful from going within, from healing, from loving ourselves. And it looked like those daily practices every single day.
Every day.
Every day. It's every day. It's every day. It's a job. It's a
Mhm.
job. So I love that. And
I
I
like
think
to call it work, but I
work.
call it like
Yeah.
work, but like a work of art, right? Like
I like
when you
that.
love something, it is work,
Yeah.
but it's the work towards this beautiful thing you're creating.
Yes.
It's passion work, it's heart work. So
Yes.
it's
Healing
different than
work.
going to maybe a space you don't necessarily like going to. I'm not
Right.
saying people, but there are plenty of people who love their job, and that's perfectly fine.
That's
But it is
perfect.
I think of it as a work of art. And I think of you, right? Like you as a person, you're a
Mhm.
work of art. So definitely doing like my twerking, my affirmations, my writing. Um, yeah.
I love that. And also with moving your body, a lot of things are stored in our hips. So I love that you do that. In our bones. We talked about this. So I
Mhm.
love that movement, y'all. Move, hey, how about you better I don't want to say her name because she might she might Alexa, she said, "Did you call?" That was funny.
Hello. I
Yeah.
clocking in.
Like, so how do you well, if you could give your younger self one message about her body, what would it be?
Girl, you the baddest and you know it.
Period. Straight like that. That's it. Drops mics. Thank you. Thank
um,
you.
I would tell her, that internal dialogue that you have, that's not yours.
Yeah.
Somebody has made you think that way. Somebody else has made you feel that way. That is not yours.
Yeah.
You don't actually think that way. You don't actually feel that way. Someone has convinced you that you do, but you don't. And I would tell her that, you know, by the time 2015 hits, girl, the way you're going to be feeling about yourself, everything else that you thought was that's not the truth.
It's not
And
the
when
truth.
2015 hits, you're ready to blow this popsicle stand, okay? You're ready to handle business. But yeah, I would definitely tell her that she doesn't have anything to worry about and everything about her. And it's really like it's language and words that I use with kids that I work with now. And the thing
Yes.
that I always tell them is your voice matters and you are important.
And it's so crazy that both of us are what we needed when we were younger.
Hmm.
We are doing everything we needed, and that's what it was for. But when I sit with little Amari, because I do inner child healing, my segments, and that's why I started T with T. So your inner child never goes away. They are still there. They're your creativeness. They are waiting for you. So never leave your inner child behind. Always talk to them, sing to them, affirm them, all of that.
Dance with them.
Dance with them, and even being uh a trans man. You know what I'm saying? Like I affirm little me with who I always was. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew who I was. I knew that I was a boy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when I go back and I affirm him, it's healing. It's like, yes, you know what I'm saying? Like you recognize who I am as little Amari. So it's very powerful to do that. So I love that. I love that. I wanted to ask you that question because I was like, I wanted to see what you
Yes.
would say to that. So, how do you balance holding space for others while continuing your own healing?
I am honest. Very honest. So if I'm having, I call them like bad, like a bad body image day or negative body image day. I'm honest about that. Like I woke up this morning, I didn't twerk this morning, I didn't do my affirmations this morning, I didn't check in with myself this morning. I just showed up and I was present, and that was all I could give. And I'm
Yeah.
honest about that. And then I'll also say that, but in being honest with that about what I didn't do for myself, I am going to give myself that space back because I deserve it. If I was able to show up for everyone else or show up for you and do all these things, then it's only right, it's only fair, and it's only loving if I also give that back to me. And so
Yep.
sometimes that might mean, creating distance between myself and some things. I've had to take some time away from my work that I do. I've had to allow other people to kind of step in and step up and take over and do some things for me because I just was not, I couldn't do it. And sometimes it does get hard. Just like we talked about with parenting, sometimes that parenting is hard. Sometimes showing up as the person a part of the brand or the person a part of the mission, sometimes that can be really hard. And so being honest with people about that and honest with myself about it.
And taking time and being gentle with yourself. Life is about the journey, not the destination. And we're not going to always be, some days I don't get up and look at my affirmations. Some days I just don't, it's just not there. And I give myself grace. Some days I just want to rest. Rest is a luxury. My therapist has been teaching me that. Some of our ancestors want us to rest.
Come on,
So,
all of them really, because they didn't
hey,
get,
hey,
they all
hey.
wanted to.
So being gentle with yourself and recognizing it, and that's okay, you know.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you for showing up. I'm glad you're here. Like this is amazing.
Thank you.
So how how do you navigate spaces that were never designed with fat or plus size folks in mind?
I walk into the room and I own every space I enter. Right. And so for me, I recognize that that means that maybe I'm wearing bright, bold colors, and maybe I have a very eclectic hairstyle, and maybe
Yeah.
I have, tight clothes on or short outfit on, or, I not only take up space physically as a fat woman, but I take up space in the way that I choose to adorn myself as well, and the energy that I choose to bring into the room. I don't bring energy into the room of like, I'm a fat girl and I know I have like physical space I'll take up. And so I'm going to shrink myself in a metaphysical way. So I'm not going to be loud or boisterous, or I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
I'm not dulling my light. I'm not dimming my shine. I'm not going to be quiet in
Mhm.
spaces that I deserve to have a voice in. And sometimes me being the loudest in the room, me showing up in the space and taking up space gives other people that permission to do so in a way that
Absolutely.
feels comfortable and suits them. Now,
Yeah.
I don't take spaces where I'm not supposed to. Now, if this is a space for trans folk, non-binary folk, I'm just there to be supportive.
Yeah.
I am there to, to be supportive and to walk you through the space and to go into the bathroom with you. So if anybody looks at you crazy, well, they can deal with me. Type
Yeah.
like
Period.
that's the role that I take in those kind of
Ally, y'all. Come on now. And listen,
spaces.
your aura speaks for itself regardless, so it's welcoming. So when someone sees you walk in the room, they see themselves and they see safety. And I've
Yes.
I've witnessed that just by watching your journey and just by seeing events and how people, the comments after your events. And I'm like, man, I wish I was back in Louisville because I would come. I
Well, make sure
support
you come when you come by, or
I'm gonna
maybe
be
look. I can bring Love Thy Belly to Seattle. Let's make it
please do.
happen.
I was actually gonna ask you, like, please do come to see. Yeah, we need to make that happen. We need to make that happen. But when I do come and visit, I would love to come to an event and support because the response after, I'm just like, you have something so powerful. You are changing the world and you have something the world needs more of. And everybody in the world needs to know Fairen Kia, love thy belly.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
everybody. So I love that. And thank you for being a safe space for a lot of our siblings. I love that. So, what needs to shift in the fashion media industries for real inclusion to happen?
Uh, we need clothing that stretches. Fatty baddies and oddie bodies. So the people who've got like different, maybe they don't have like the big voluptuous hips because maybe they were assigned male at birth, and so like they have more of like those straight up and down kind of hips, or maybe they don't have the breast and fatty bodies and oddie bodies. We need different structure in the clothing.
Yeah.
Michelle Buteau from Survival of the Thickest, the second season, does a really great job of talking about that sometimes looks like the fashion industry keeping those bodies in mind when they're actually creating the clothing.
Yes.
Linen does not work for us. We need fabrics that have stretch in them. So make the lycra, make the stretchy kind of fabrics. We need that. Well,
Fern,
okay, because like if you're a fatty baddie, sometimes you don't have big boobs and big butts. Sometimes you just have the big belly and you just have the big back and you just have the big thighs. Baby, I still need my stretch.
Fairen's giving y'all the blueprint. Okay, somebody get on the board right now.
Okay, put me out. Vogue.
Vote. Which you were just nominated for Most Admired Woman.
Today's Woman Most Admired. Yeah,
Yes,
Today's
yes.
Woman magazine.
I was like, more of that. That's why I say God is gonna place you everywhere you need to be because there's millions of you've touched. There's a saying someone told me, Amari, when you reach one person, you reach a million. And I've seen to you, every person you reach, that's a ripple effect. So we need you in every room. We need you.
Thank
We
you.
need you, period. So I want to get into our last little section, creative roles and rich identity. How do your many roles, coach, curator, wedding officiant, teacher, all around everything, how does that reflect your personal mission? And I think you hit on it, but how does that reflect, bring it in,
Absolutely. So to bring it all into play, I actually had this conversation pretty recently about how Fairen Kia is an educator. Fairen Kia is the wedding officiant. Fairen Kia is the storyteller, whereas Love Thy Belly is the collective stories that we're all telling. So that's the workshops, the events, the community. That is what Love Thy Belly is. And so I, as the person and the holder, right, of the stories, whereas the storytelling is through the vision of Love Thy Belly, it's through the inclusivity of Love Thy Belly, it is through the diversity, it is through the equity, it is through the inclusion of all body types and all stories, while centering the experiences of fat, Black, queer folks, but allowing those stories to shed light on the stories that other people have as well.
Period. Period. That because I'm just like, you wear so many hats. I'm just like, I admire you. You're an inspiration. I'm like, I thought I did a lot, but now but I love how it just all comes back home. It all ties to your mission, and you do everything with a pure heart, and you do everything with little Fairen in mind.
Yes.
People that look like you, people who don't look like you, people like me, people, just everyone. You include everyone, and I love that. So I got two more questions for you. So which part of your work feels closest to your heart right now?
Which part of it feels closest to my heart right now? The things that I do with kids.
Yeah.
So whether that be the events, the workshops, the one-to-ones with the families and the kids, the most important thing that I feel like I do is the Love Thy Belly Scholarship, which is awarded to fat middle school age queer students who struggle with anxiety, PTSD, and depression. Because I didn't have the language for it at that age. Those definitely things that I experienced, and it's a very barrier-free scholarship. With the permission of the family, we send the money to the student directly, and they can use it for anything under the sun. What we've gotten back is a lot of students will use it for gender affirming care. Our first scholarship we ever issued, the student actually wrote to Love Thy Belly and let Love Thy Belly know that they used the scholarship to purchase their first binder. And I know you know what a binder is, but for anybody who might not know what a binder is something that someone might buy in order to bind their breast tissue down, so that way they feel more affirmed in the clothing that they're wearing. So someone who might not want to have a lot of breast tissue because maybe they want to wear like a collared shirt, they want it to fall more straight, they might purchase a binder, or someone might buy a binder to hold the breast tissue down because maybe they don't feel comfortable with having a lot of breast tissue.
And to add to that, affirming, like not everyone does call it breast, just your chest, or just, if it's, just more affirming to, you wanting to be more flatter, or, because language is very powerful in our community, in every community, and, I know that when I was, coming up, language, there were certain things that I didn't say, to affirm, me as a man,
Yeah.
So definitely, if you just want to have a flat chest, or, even, just, kind of tone you up, because even if you have top surgery, and a lot of people don't know what top surgery is, but when you go through that procedure, not everyone does have top surgery. I want it to remove that tissue. the chest tissue out to give you a complete flat chest. It can just help you just feel more affirming, and please bind safely as well. I want to put that out there. There are, like Underworks and, great companies that, I refer out to a lot of youth, a lot of trans youth that I work with. So please bind safely, but however you acknowledge, your chest or anything like that, that is a very great tool to access. And I'm grateful that Love Thy Belly was able to make someone feel affirmed and safe and like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm flat, so that is very affirming. And
Thank you for giving me that inclusive language to use.
yes, yeah, and it's important because I'm stealth. I'm stealth with also still having the balance of being an advocate and showing up and knowing that when someone sees me that they can see, what it looks like to have a beard and and all of that, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
all of that. And the reason why I am stealth is because, I've blood, sweat, and tears, and I've always just been me, and sometimes I'm just a man. You know what I mean? Like and so language is very important to me. Like if someone, says different words, like it can be triggering sometimes. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, even like some guys I know say chesticles or something like that,
Yeah.
And even, after, top surgery and stuff like that, like even the language I use now is just like, chesticles, chest. But even in the spaces like where where I am talking to, trans youth and stuff like that, I let them know that you have the power to say and name it. If you
Yeah.
don't want to call it that, you don't have to. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be that because you are who you are. You are a man. If you say you're a man, you're a man. Body
Hmm.
parts don't matter.
Yeah.
But language seems to help. You know what I'm
It
saying?
does.
Like really, really bring it full circle. Like, okay, no, you don't have the B word. You just have a little bit, a little
Maybe
bit of
I'll call it upper body tissue.
upper body tissue. And then also with that, like I always tell people, like, there's man boobs are a thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I try not to use like, but I
Yeah,
like that, right? Like I use the word breast, but also like the inclusivity of the word chest too,
yeah,
depending on, like you said, what the trigger that might be for people, because that is important. So we're
yeah.
gonna call it upper body tissue, and
I
that's what
love
you're
it.
binding. Like you
Yes,
said,
and
though,
that's what you're
bind
buying.
safely for sure.
Yes, yes, and and I love that you and I love this conversation because we can educate each other and
Hmm.
and that can help someone because you know society is say, oh, if you still have that, then you're not male. Or if it's a trans woman, if you still have this, you're not that. Now I know a lot of people don't get surgeries. I know a lot of people that's their choice, and a lot of people for medical reasons, but we tie so much to the body. Like if you have this, then you're not this, especially in the
Yeah,
trans community.
yeah,
So language is very important.
it
So but
is.
I thank you for providing that. Middle schoolers having that. If I had that in middle school, God, that would have saved
Or I
me.
mean, some of them, like, they might buy makeup or a wig, or
Yes, anything.
maybe they're buying like t-shirts, or
Yes,
I will say that a lot of things that we talk about as gender affirming care, it's not just about clothing, and it's not just about surgeries. It's what that person individually feels. And I would
exactly.
like to go ahead and remind people that Viagra, that's gender affirming care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All of that, BB, all of that. Like everyone
A
gets
BBL, that's gender affirming
affirming
care.
care. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And everyone has a right to it. And like I say, middle school, if I had the language, if I had the tools, it would have saved me a lot of I am a suicide attempt survivor. It would have just saved so much. So the fact that we have something like Love Thy Belly, where you're affirming as young as middle schoolers and even educating down to elementary school, high school, that is what we need. We need a T with T, where I'm, what I'm saying, teaching them language and that, all of that. So us together, we're doing it. So I'm grateful to you that you could be that. as that's something that I wish that I would have had in middle school. So I'm
Thank
grateful
you.
for that. I love that. So lastly, I want to ask you as a divine creative being, if your art, I love thy belly, could hug someone, who would it hug today?
Who would I hug today? Second grade Fairen. Second grade Fairen. The moment that she realized that she was different than everyone else.
I had a feeling that was gonna be it. And I wanted that to be it because I was like, the beginning of the conversation, we talked about that. I'm like, I knew it. I was like, yes, I
Yep.
knew the answer to that question. I love that. And I love that. And I'm also hugging second grade Fern and second grade Amari, third grade Fern, third grade Amari. I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that we made it through. And I'm very proud of you. And
Thank
I'm
you.
very proud of second grade Fern for being that wise to notice the difference. And you were doing the work before you even knew it. So, Fern, thank you. So, well, that's a wrap on another.
I know I probably talked your head off. So everyone who's
No,
watching and you're like,
no, this is
wow,
perfect.
2 hours is a long time. I hope that
No,
you
this is
got what you
good.
needed. I hope that, everything that you needed from this, or that maybe if something was said that you didn't even know you needed. I hope that this was a space where you felt validated and you
Mm,
felt seen. And I hope that you don't feel alone in this journey, that we're all on, right? We're all on this journey of life together. And I hope that you find community and feel community in this. And thank you so much, Mr. Amari Leach, for having me and
yeah.
giving me a space to talk about my own lived experiences. And again, hopefully someone is liberated through that.
I definitely hope so. I know that things that you shared, I didn't know that we had a lot in common. And like I said, being the male that was, that when I was in my relationship and things like that, being able to talk to you, I feel I feel liberated. I feel like, that now that I see a version of her and the version of me, I can continue to grow wiser and wiser. And just similar things that we've been through, anxiety, depression, surviving mental illnesses and daily practices and self-care. So I learned more about both of us. I didn't know that we had a lot in common. So Farron, thank you,
Thank
for
you.
coming on Tea with Tea. And like I said, this was an insightful and powerful episode of Tea with Tea Talks with Mr. Amari Leach. I want to again thank Fairen Kia for sharing her powerful story, her mission, and her passion for helping all people realize their worth and love their bodies just as they are. As Fairen reminded us today, all bodies are good bodies, and loving yourself starts from within. So let's carry that message forward, celebrate ourselves, and lift each other up in the process. Don't forget to follow Farron's journey. Check out her book, Dear Fat Girls, When Love Wasn't Enough. Please get that and connect with her through Love Thy Belly on all platforms. Until next time, this is Mr. Amari Leach sending you love, light, and encouragement to be exactly who you are meant to be. Peace, family. Thank you again, Farron. Thank y'all. See y'all next time.